When did caring for yourself become something you had to buy? Something that required special products, expensive retreats, or complicated routines? Somewhere along the way, self-care turned into another form of consumption. We're told that peace comes from bath bombs and face masks, from spa days and shopping sprees. And yet, after all the purchasing, after all the pampering, that restlessness inside remains untouched. There's a woman I knew named Dorothy, 73, who once confessed to me over tea that she'd spent thousands of dollars on what magazines promised would bring her calm. Aromatherapy candles lined her shelves. Meditation apps filled her phone. But she said the noise in her mind only grew louder. I kept thinking if I just found the right thing, the right practice, I'd finally feel peaceful. But I was looking in all the wrong places. What Dorothy discovered, and what the Buddha taught centuries ago, is that peace isn't something we acquire from outside ourselves. It's something we return to. The restlessness we feel, the anxiety that keeps us awake at night, the heaviness in our chest, these arise not because we lack something, but because we've abandoned the present moment. We've left ourselves behind in the endless chase for more, for better, for different. In Japanese culture, there's a beautiful understanding that self-care isn't about escape or indulgence. It's about presence. It's about touching life directly, with full awareness, in the simplest of moments. The habits we'll explore today aren't expensive. They don't require special equipment or years of training. What they require is something far more precious: your attention. These 7 practices come from a tradition that understands what the Buddha understood, that suffering grows when we're disconnected from the here and now, and that peace blooms when we learn to be fully present for our own lives. You don't need more things. You need more moments of awareness. You don't need to become someone else. You need to return to yourself. So let's slow down together. Let's explore how the wisdom of Japanese culture, deeply influenced by Buddhist teachings, can help us discover something modern self-care has forgotten: that the greatest gift you can offer yourself is simply being here, awake, in this moment. Opening the window, beginning the day awake. In the early morning, before the world has fully awakened, there's a ritual practiced in Japanese homes that most people would consider too simple to matter. They open a window, not rushing to check their phones, not immediately turning on the television or radio, but walking to a window and opening it to let in the morning air. I remember visiting Kyoto years ago and staying with an elderly couple who ran a small guest house. The husband, Tanaka-san, was 81, with hands gnarled from decades of gardening. Each morning, without fail, he would rise before dawn, shuffle to the front room, and slide open the shoji screen. He would stand there, sometimes for a full minute, just breathing. When I asked him about this habit, he smiled gently. "It's how I remind myself I'm alive," he said. "The air tells me what kind of day is beginning." This practice isn't about getting fresh air, though that's certainly beneficial. It's about something deeper, setting the quality of your attention from the very first moment you begin your day. The Buddha often taught that the mind is like a field. What you plant in the morning grows throughout the day. If the first thing you encounter is the harsh light of a screen, the urgency of messages and demands, you plant seeds of anxiety and reactivity. But when you open a window and simply stand there, feeling the cool air on your skin, hearing the morning birds, noticing how light is just beginning to touch the world, you plant something different. You plant awareness. You remind your mind that before all the doing, there is simply being. There's a Buddhist teaching that says the quality of our attention determines the quality of our life. Not what we accomplish, not what we accumulate, but how present we are for the moments we're given. When you open that window in the morning, You're not just letting in air, you're opening yourself to presence. You're choosing to meet the day with awareness rather than autopilot. Think about your own mornings. How many begin with reaching immediately for your phone before your feet even touch the floor? How many start with a mental list of everything you need to do, every problem you need to solve, and by the time you're actually awake, you're already exhausted, already gone from yourself? This simple habit, opening a window, standing there for just 1 minute, breathing, can shift everything. It costs nothing. It requires no special skill, but it asks something of you, that you give yourself permission to begin again, fresh, without the weight of yesterday or the worry about tomorrow pulling you away from this breath, this morning, this life that's happening right now. Try this tomorrow. Before you do anything else, before you check anything or start anything, walk to a window, open it, feel the air, notice what you hear, what you smell, how the world feels in this early moment. Let your first conscious choice of the day be presence, not productivity, not worry, just here, just now, just breathing. The Buddha once said that each morning we are born again. What we do today matters most. When you open that window, you're accepting that invitation to be born fresh, to meet the day as it actually is, to begin from a place of calm awareness rather than scattered urgency. Slowing down with tea, the meditation in every movement. There's something sacred that happens when you slow down enough to really make a cup of tea. Not the hurried grabbing of a tea bag, dunking it twice, and rushing on, but the real preparation, measuring the water, heating it to the right temperature, choosing the tea leaves with care, watching them unfurl in the heat. In Japanese culture, the tea ceremony has been refined over centuries into a profound practice of mindfulness. But you don't need to know the formal choreography to understand what's at its heart. Anything done slowly becomes a meditation. Any ordinary act, when given your full attention, becomes a doorway back to yourself. I once met a retired teacher named Margaret, who struggled terribly with anxiety. She'd tried medication, therapy, meditation apps. Nothing seemed to quiet her mind. Then, almost accidentally, she discovered something. One morning, moving more slowly because her arthritis was acting up, she found herself truly paying attention as she made her morning tea. She noticed the sound of water beginning to boil, that soft rumbling that builds. She watched the steam rise. She felt the warmth of the cup in her hands, and for those few minutes, the anxious thoughts that usually consumed her simply fell away. It wasn't magic, she told me later. It was just that I finally stopped running from myself. For those few minutes with the tea, I was completely there. No yesterday, no tomorrow, just the water, the leaves, the warmth, and in that space, there was peace. This is what the Buddha meant by one-pointed attention, bringing your whole mind to one thing, letting everything else fall away. In our modern world, we've been trained to do the opposite, to split our attention into 1,000 fragments. We make coffee while checking emails, while planning the day, while worrying about tomorrow, and we wonder why we feel scattered, why we can't find peace. The practice with tea is simple but powerful. Choose one tea ritual each day. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Even making a simple cup can become sacred when you do it with full attention. Notice each step. When you fill the kettle, feel the weight of the water. When you wait for it to boil, just wait. Don't grab your phone. Don't start another task. Stand there. Listen. When you pour the water over the leaves, watch. When you lift the cup to your lips, feel its warmth. Breathe in the fragrance. Taste it fully. This practice teaches something essential. You don't need to add anything to your life to find peace. You need to subtract your distraction. You need to come fully into what you're already doing. As one Zen master said, When drinking tea, just drink tea. Not drink tea and think about work. Not drink tea and plan dinner. Just tea. Completely, fully, there. And here's what you'll discover, that calm isn't something you achieve after completing a long meditation practice. Calm is what remains when you stop abandoning the present moment. It's always there, waiting beneath the noise, accessible in any ordinary act, when you bring your whole self to it. Try this. Choose one simple activity today, making tea, washing a dish, folding a piece of clothing, and do it at half your normal speed. Don't rush. Don't let your mind wander to what comes next. Stay right there with each movement, each sensation. Notice how different it feels. Notice how, for those moments, the anxiety and restlessness have nowhere to live, because you're too busy being present to host them. The path to peace isn't complicated. It's just usually moving too fast for us to notice. Listening to sense. Training awareness through the senses. In Japan, there's a practice called ko, the art of appreciating incense. But the word they use isn't smelling incense, it's listening to it. Mon ko, listening to incense. At first this might sound strange. How do you listen to a smell? But the language reveals something profound about attention. When we smell something casually, we barely notice it. A scent enters our awareness, and we label it pleasant, unpleasant, familiar, and move on. But to listen to a scent means to give it your complete attention, to explore its subtle notes, to stay with it as it unfolds and changes. It means treating that experience with the same care and presence you'd bring to listening to music or a friend's story. This practice teaches us something the Buddha emphasized again and again. The senses are not just ways to experience the world, they're anchors that can bring us back from the wandering mind. When your thoughts are spinning, when anxiety has you caught in stories about the past or fears about the future, the senses are your doorway back to now. I remember Elena, a woman in her 60s who came to a mindfulness group I used to attend. She'd recently lost her husband of 40 years and found herself drowning in grief and depression. Her mind, she said, was like a wild horse she couldn't control, constantly running through memories and what-ifs and why didn't I's. She couldn't meditate. Her thoughts were too loud. But then someone taught her this practice of listening to sense. She started simply. Each morning, she would make her coffee, and before drinking it, she would just sit with the cup beneath her nose for a full minute, breathing in the aroma, not thinking about it, not analyzing it, just being completely there with that smell, that moment. And slowly, those minutes became islands of peace in the storm of her grief. The scent didn't take away her pain, but it gave her mind a place to rest, a tether back to the present, where she could simply be, without the story spinning. This is Buddhist practice made accessible. You don't need to sit on a cushion for an hour. You don't need special training. You just need to become curious about what your senses are already experiencing. When you smell the soap on your hands, really smell it. When you breathe in the morning air, explore it like you're a child discovering it for the first time. When you prepare food, pause to notice the scent of garlic as it hits the hot pan, the earthiness of fresh herbs, the sweetness of fruit. These small acts of attention are training. You're training your mind to come back from its wandering, to return from the stories and worries and endless mental commentary to what's actually here. And with practice, that coming back becomes easier, more natural. You develop what the Buddha called sati mindfulness, the ability to know where your attention is and to gently guide it back when it strays. The beautiful thing about using sense as an anchor is that they're always available. You don't need anything special. The smell of rain on pavement, the scent of your morning shower, the aroma of tea, of bread, of earth after you've been gardening. These are free gifts, moments of potential presence scattered throughout your day, waiting for you to notice them. Try this practice several times today. Whatever you're doing, pause and notice what you smell. Don't judge it. Don't think about it. Just be fully present with it for 10 seconds. Breathe it in. Stay with it. Notice how that brief pause interrupts the mental spinning, how it brings you back to here, to now, to the actual experience of being alive, rather than being lost in thought. As the Buddha taught, the mind that's trained in awareness is the mind that knows peace. And that training doesn't happen on a mountaintop or in a monastery. It happens right here, in these small moments, with these simple practices, when we remember to return to what's already present. Stepping into light, komorebi, and the practice of seeing clearly. There's a Japanese word that has no exact English translation. Komorebi, it means the sunlight filtering through leaves, the dappled pattern of light and shadow that dances on the forest floor. It's such a specific, beautiful phenomenon that the Japanese gave it its own name, its own recognition. Why would a culture create a word for something so particular? Because naming something makes us notice it. When you have a word for komorebi, you begin to see it everywhere, on your morning walk, through the window, in the park. You start to pause for it, to let it stop you in your tracks. This is what's missing in our modern rush. We've stopped noticing beauty. We've stopped allowing ourselves to be arrested by moments of simple grace. And in that noticing, we miss most of our lives. There's a Buddhist teaching that says enlightenment is simply seeing clearly, not achieving some mystical state, not transcending the world, just seeing what's actually here, without the veil of thought and interpretation, and constant mental noise. Light filtering through leaves is just light filtering through leaves. But when you're truly present for it, when you let yourself really see it, something opens in you. A space appears, a breath of peace. I once walked through a temple garden in Kamakura with a monk named Takeshi. He was 78, moved slowly, said little. At one point, we came to a place where morning light was streaming through a canopy of maple trees, creating those beautiful shifting patterns on the stone path. Takeshi stopped. He didn't say anything, just stood there, completely still, for what must have been 3 or 4 minutes. When he finally moved again, he smiled at me. "Did you see?" he asked. "Not just look. See." That question has stayed with me, because there's a difference between looking and seeing. We look at things all day long, our eyes passing over them without really registering them. But to see requires stopping. It requires presence. It requires allowing something outside yourself to reach you, to touch you, to matter. The practice of komorebi, of stepping into light, is about training yourself to notice beauty again, to let it stop you. Science tells us that exposure to natural light, especially morning light, helps regulate our circadian rhythms, improves mood, strengthens our sense of groundedness. But beyond biology, there's something deeper. Light reminds us of clarity. Shadow reminds us that nothing stays the same. The interplay between them teaches impermanence, teaches change, teaches the Buddhist truth that everything is always shifting, always in motion. When you stand in dappled sunlight, you're standing in a teaching. You're witnessing what the Buddha called a nikka, the constant change that defines all existence. The patterns shift as the breeze moves the leaves. The angle changes as the sun climbs. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. And in that truth, oddly enough, there's peace. Because if nothing is permanent, then your suffering isn't permanent either. This difficult moment will pass, just like the shadow passes into light. Try this practice once a day. Step outside and find light. It doesn't need to be perfect forest coma rebi. Even light through a window, light touching a wall, morning light on your hands. Any light will do. Stand in it. Close your eyes and feel its warmth on your face. Open your eyes and really look at how it falls, how it creates contrast, how it illuminates. Stay there for 1 full minute. Just you and the light. Nothing else. This is meditation without calling it meditation. This is presence without needing a cushion, or a teacher, or special knowledge. This is the Dharma, the teaching, made visible, the reminder that beauty and truth are always here, always accessible, always waiting for us to stop rushing long enough to see. As one Zen poem says, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. You don't have to create peace. You don't have to manufacture calm. You just have to stop fleeing from the moment long enough to notice that peace and calm are already here, shimmering in the light, waiting patiently for your return. Letting go, clearing the mind through space. There's something that happens when you hold an object in your hands and ask yourself honestly, does this still serve my life? Sometimes the answer is yes. But more often, especially as we grow older, the answer is no. And yet we keep it anyway, out of habit, out of guilt, out of the belief that letting go means something is being taken from us. In Japan, there's a concept called ma, space, emptiness, the pause between things. It's considered as important as the things themselves. A room isn't beautiful because of what fills it, but because of the space that allows each object to breathe, to have meaning. When everything is cluttered, nothing can be truly seen. When your space is crowded, your mind becomes crowded too. The Buddha taught extensively about non-attachment, not as some cold rejection of the world, but as freedom from the weight of clinging. Everything you keep, every object you hold onto beyond its usefulness, takes a small piece of your attention. You may not realize it consciously, but your mind is tracking it, remembering it exists, carrying its presence. Multiply that by hundreds of objects, and you're carrying a very heavy invisible load. I knew a man named Robert, 76, whose wife had passed away 3 years before. He'd kept everything exactly as it was, her clothes in the closet, her books on the nightstand, her shoes by the door. He told me he couldn't bear to let anything go because it felt like losing her all over again. But he also couldn't find peace. His house felt like a museum, frozen in time, and he felt trapped in it. One day his daughter gently suggested they go through one drawer together. Just one. They chose the kitchen drawer where his wife had kept recipes, notes, little odds and ends. As they sorted through it, something shifted. Robert realized that keeping these scraps of paper wasn't keeping his wife close. It was keeping him from truly honoring what she'd meant to him. The love they'd shared didn't live in a drawer. It lived in his heart, in his memories, in who he'd become because of her. They filled a small box with a few meaningful items, her handwriting on a favorite recipe card, a note she'd written him, one photo. The rest, with gratitude, they let go, and Robert said when he closed that newly empty drawer, he felt lighter. Not because he'd forgotten, but because he'd chosen what to carry forward and released the burden of carrying everything. This is the Buddhist practice of letting go, made physical. You're not rejecting the past. You're not dishonoring what was. You're acknowledging that you cannot move forward if you're trying to hold on to everything that's ever been. Some things must be released so that new things, new breath, new possibilities, new peace can enter. The practice is simple but powerful. Once a week, choose one item, hold it in your hands, thank it for whatever service it provided. Then ask, Does this serve my life now? If the answer is no, let it go. Give it away, donate it, release it with gratitude, and feel what happens in your body, in your mind, when you do. Notice the space that opens. Notice how even a small letting go creates room to breathe. This applies to more than objects. It applies to grudges you've carried for decades, to regrets that replay in your mind, to expectations that no longer fit who you've become, to identities you've outgrown. All of these are forms of clutter, mental and emotional weight that steals your energy and clouds your peace. The Buddha said, "Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, let go completely, and cross over to the farther shore." This doesn't mean become unmoored or indifferent. It means stop clinging so tightly to what cannot be held that you miss what's actually here. When you create space in your physical environment, you're practicing for creating space in your mind. You're learning what the Buddha taught, that attachment creates suffering and release creates freedom. Not emptiness in the sense of lacking, but emptiness in the sense of open, spacious, ready. Try this. Look around your home right now. Choose one object that you know, deep down, no longer needs to be there. Pick it up, hold it for a moment, and silently thank it. Then, let it go. Place it in a bag for donation or disposal. Notice how that feels. Notice the small shift inside you, because every act of release, no matter how small, is practice for the ultimate release we all must make of this life, this body, this identity. The more we practice letting go now, in these small ways, the more we learn what the Buddha knew, that the tighter we hold, the more we suffer, and the more we open our hands, the more peaceful we become. Mindful water, the sacred in the ordinary. Water touches your skin dozens of times a day. You wash your hands, you shower, you rinse dishes. But when was the last time you were actually present for it? When did you last feel the water? Really feel it, rather than performing the task while your mind was somewhere else entirely. In Japanese culture, water is considered purifying not just for the body, but for the spirit. The ritual of bathing, of washing, isn't merely about cleanliness, it's about renewal, about marking transitions, about using the physical act to create an internal shift. But this power is lost if you're not actually there for it. The Buddha taught that enlightenment doesn't require anything special. It's found in ordinary moments, ordinary acts, when we bring extraordinary attention to them. Washing your hands can be as profound as any meditation if you're fully present. The problem is, we're almost never fully present. Think about this morning. When you washed your face, were you there? Or were you already 3 steps ahead, planning your day, rehearsing conversations, worrying about what needs to be done? Your hands moved, water flowed, but you weren't really there to experience it. This is how we lose our lives, not in dramatic moments, but in the thousands of small moments we simply sleep through. There's a story about a Zen student who asked his master, "What is the most important thing in spiritual practice?" The master replied, "Attention." The student pressed, "And what comes after attention?" The master smiled and said, "Attention. This is the teaching. Wherever you are, be there. Whatever you're doing, do that. When water touches your skin, feel the water." It seems too simple to matter, but it's everything. Because if you can't be present for washing your hands, how will you ever be present for your life? I remember Anna, a woman who'd recently retired and found herself feeling deeply lonely despite having family nearby. She described a kind of numbness, a sense of going through motions without really experiencing anything. When I asked about her daily routines, She couldn't describe them in any detail. She showered each morning, but couldn't remember what it felt like. She cooked dinner, but ate while watching television. She washed dishes on autopilot, her mind already moving to the next thing. So we started with just one practice: mindful hand washing. 3 times a day, when she washed her hands, she would do nothing but wash her hands. Feel the temperature of the water. Notice the sensation of soap, how it changes the texture, the sound of water running, the clean feeling afterward. That's it. No phone nearby, no thinking ahead, just that one simple act given full attention. 2 weeks later, she told me something had shifted. The hand-washing practice had started to spread to other moments. She'd notice herself actually tasting her food, feeling the warmth of the shower water, and in those moments of presence, the numbness was lifting. She was coming back to herself, to her life, one mindful moment at a time. This is the power of water as a teacher. Every time you interact with it, washing, drinking, bathing, you have an opportunity to return to now. The Buddha taught that the path to freedom isn't found in mystical experiences, but in fully inhabiting the life you're already living. Water gives you that chance dozens of times each day. Try this practice. Choose one water ritual today. It could be washing your hands before a meal, taking your morning shower, rinsing vegetables for dinner. Whatever it is, make a commitment for those moments. You will be completely there. Feel the water's temperature. Notice its sound. Feel it against your skin. Stay with the sensations without letting your mind wander. If it does wander, and it will, gently bring it back to the water, to the feeling, to this moment. This simple practice might seem insignificant, but it's training your mind in something essential, the ability to be where you are. And that ability is the difference between a life lived and a life missed. Because if you are not present for these small moments, the touch of water, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of your own breathing, then you are not present for most of your life. As one Zen saying goes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities don't change, your presence within them does, and that presence transforms everything. Morning cleaning, moving the body, quieting the mind. In Buddhist monasteries, the day begins not with prayer or meditation, but with cleaning. The monks sweep the temple grounds, wash the floors, tend to their spaces with careful attention. This isn't about maintaining appearances or following rules. It's a practice of embodied mindfulness, a way of settling the mind through gentle, purposeful movement. There's a deep wisdom here that modern life has forgotten. The body and mind aren't separate. When your body is restless, your mind is restless. When your body is purposefully engaged, moving with attention and care, your mind settles. This is why walking meditation works. This is why gardening feels meditative. This is why cleaning, when done mindfully, can quiet a troubled mind better than sitting still and trying to force it quiet. I knew a man named David, 71, who struggled with early morning anxiety. He'd wake at 5, his mind immediately racing with worries about his health, his children, money, everything. He tried meditation, but sitting still only made the anxiety worse. His mind had nowhere to go but deeper into the worry spiral. Then someone suggested he try cleaning first thing each morning. Just 10 minutes, nothing elaborate, wiping down the kitchen counter, sweeping the floor, straightening the living room. At first, he thought it was silly. How would cleaning help anxiety? But he tried it anyway. What he discovered was that the gentle movement, combined with the simple focus on the task, gave his anxious mind something concrete to do. His hands were busy, his body was engaged, and somehow, in that space of purposeful activity, the anxiety lost its grip. By the time he finished his 10 minutes of cleaning, his mind was calmer, clearer, ready to meet the day. This is the Buddhist understanding of right effort, not straining, not forcing, but engaging skillfully with what's in front of you. The monk sweeping the temple path isn't thinking about enlightenment. He's sweeping completely, fully, and in that complete engagement, the restless mind finds rest. The practice is beautifully simple. Spend just 3 to 5 minutes each morning doing some light cleaning, not rushing through it to get it done, but moving deliberately, paying attention. Feel the cloth in your hand as you wipe the counter. Notice the rhythm as you sweep. Feel your feet on the floor as you walk from room to room. This isn't about having a spotless house. It's about having a settled mind. Clean space, clear mind, the saying goes, but it works both ways. The act of creating clean space helps create a clear mind. There's also something deeply satisfying about starting your day with a small, completed task. Before the chaos begins, before the demands pile up, you've done something concrete. You've created order in a small corner of the world, and that sense of accomplishment, however small, sets a different tone than waking into immediate overwhelm. The Buddha often taught through physical practices, walking, sitting, eating. He understood that the body is the doorway to the mind. You cannot think your way into peace. You must sometimes move your way there. Gentle, purposeful movement grounds you in the present in a way that pure mental effort cannot. Try this tomorrow before you check your phone, before you start your day's plans. Spend just 3 minutes tidying. Choose one small area, a counter, a nightstand, a corner of a room. Clear it slowly, wipe it clean. Arrange what remains with care, and notice how you feel when it's done. Notice if your mind feels just a bit clearer, a bit more settled. This practice teaches something subtle but important. You cannot control most of what happens in your life, but you can influence the space around you. And that small act of creating order, of tending to what's within your reach, reminds you that you're not powerless. You can care for things. You can make small things better, and those small acts accumulate into a life of care rather than chaos. As the Zen masters say, how you do anything is how you do everything. Clean your space with attention and care, and you're practicing how to meet your whole life with attention and care. Integration. Why these habits transform us. If you've stayed with me through these 7 practices, you might notice something. None of them are complicated. None require special equipment or training. None cost money. They're so simple, they might seem trivial. And yet if you begin to practice them, something profound shifts. Why? Because all 7 habits share a common thread. They bring you back. Back from the scattered mind. Back from the endless mental commentary. Back from worry and planning, and remembering and analyzing. Back to here. Back to now. Back to the simple, direct experience of being alive. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught that suffering arises from our relationship with experience, not from experience itself. Pain is inevitable. Age brings aches. Loss brings grief. Change brings uncertainty. But suffering, the mental anguish, the spiraling anxiety, the sense that we can't bear what's happening, comes from our mind's constant movement, away from what is, toward what was, or what might be, or what should be. These practices train you to stay, to not flee the moment. When you stand at an open window feeling morning air, you're not somewhere else. When you're fully present making tea, you're not lost in thought. When you notice Komorebi, clean mindfully, feel water on your skin. In all these moments, the mind stops its endless running and comes home. And here's what you discover. The peace you've been seeking wasn't hiding somewhere far away, requiring years of practice to access. It was always here, in this moment, waiting beneath the noise. You don't heal by escaping life. You heal by returning to it. Think of it this way: every time you're fully present, even for just a few seconds, you're interrupting the habit of suffering. You're creating a gap in the constant mental story, and in that gap, there's space, there's breath, there's the possibility of peace. These habits work together, reinforcing each other. The more you practice presence in one area, the easier it becomes in others. You begin to notice when you've left yourself, and you develop the skill to return. This isn't about perfection. You'll wander countless times, but wandering less, returning more. This is the path. The Buddha didn't promise life without difficulty. He promised freedom from unnecessary suffering, the suffering we create through our resistance, our distraction, our endless mental escape from the present. And that freedom is available to anyone willing to practice, to return, to be here. These 7 practices are like doorways, small, humble doorways you walk through dozens of times each day. And each time you walk through one with awareness, opening that window, making that tea, feeling that water, you're stepping out of suffering and into presence. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to yourself. The self that existed before all the stories and worries and mental noise. The self that can simply be here, breath by breath, moment by moment, touching life directly without the veil of constant thought. So remember, none of these practices need to be perfect. Start with just one. Maybe it's the morning window. Maybe it's 3 minutes of mindful cleaning. Choose what calls to you and begin there. Practice it daily for a week, bringing as much attention as you can. Then add another if you wish. The transformation doesn't come from doing all 7 perfectly. It comes from the quality of attention you bring to whichever one you're practicing. One moment of true presence is worth more than hours of distracted effort. A soft return to yourself. We began with the question, when did caring for yourself become something you had to buy? And perhaps now the answer is clear. Real care doesn't come in packages or products. It comes in moments. In the choice to open a window and breathe. In the decision to make tea slowly. In the willingness to feel water on your skin, to notice light, to move gently through your space. These habits ask nothing from you except the one thing that's already yours, your attention. They don't require you to be someone different or somewhere else. They invite you to simply be where you are, as you are, with a gentle awareness that transforms ordinary moments into doorways back to peace. The Buddha taught that the path to freedom isn't difficult because the practices are complicated. It's difficult because we forget to practice. We forget to return. We get swept up in the current of constant doing, constant thinking, constant being somewhere other than here. And these simple habits are threads you can grasp to pull yourself back. You might try one tomorrow. Just one. Open a window before checking your phone. Make your tea with full attention. Stand in morning light for 1 minute. Wash your hands as if it matters. Clean one small space with care. Notice one scent fully. Let go of one item that no longer serves you. Each of these is a return, a coming home, a remembering that peace isn't something you achieve after completing elaborate practices. It's what remains when you stop fleeing from the present moment. And perhaps this is the deepest teaching: you are already whole. You don't need fixing. You don't need improving. You need gentleness. You need presence. You need to stop treating yourself like a problem to solve and start treating yourself like a life to be lived. So here's my invitation to you. Care for yourself not with purchases or plans, but with presence. Meet yourself in these small moments. Be kind to the one who's carrying so much, who's survived so much, who's still here, still breathing, still capable of noticing beauty and touching peace. If this message touched something in you, I'd love to hear which practice you'll begin with. Leave a comment sharing what called to you. And if you found value here, if these words offered you something useful, consider subscribing to continue this journey together. Because walking the path toward presence, toward peace, toward ourselves, this is something we can do together, one gentle practice at a time. May you be peaceful. May you be present. May you come home to yourself again and again in each moment that remains. Because that's all we ever really have. This breath, this moment, this chance to be fully here. And when you are, you'll discover what the Buddha knew, that everything you've been seeking has been waiting right here all along.